Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Jeffrey Reynolds from Reynolds Runabouts. In the shop for the next few months or more, I have a 1955 Wolverine Ply-Lap Custom that is from southern Michigan and needs at least at this point, restoration from rub rail to rub rail. And that really entails just having some paint removed and then checking the fastenings, checking for any sort of rot, checking for abrasions that have let rot or deformations in the hull that need some fairing. And that'll get a paint job. Once I get the paint removed from gunnel to gunnel or rub rail to rub rail, I'm going to ask the owner what sort of paint they would like to go in the way of colors. And then we're going to do that. We're leaning towards original. We'll find that out soon enough. The 1957 35 horse Evinrude is probably going to get swapped out for a more period motor from 1955. Again, that's up to the owner in the future. And if we get to the point where the bottom looks better than the top, we might do the top too. That all depends on what the owner wants to do in a few months when we get there. So I'll give you a walk around. So from stern to stem, we'll start with this Wolverine Ply-Lap Wagemaker, made by Wagemaker in Grand Rapids, Michigan. For many years, the 55, I think they went out of business in '62. So this was, middle of their career. They were furniture makers, and then during the Depression, they went into making boats. Largely well known for their plywood, molded plywood construction, which is multiple layers of veneer that were multi-directional, and then glue was involved between the two layers, and then they were cooked in an oven or with heat to give it that bond. It's kind of like a fiberglass boat, but using traditional mechanical methods versus chemical for the resin and fiberglass. So, like I said, probably do something different with the motor in the future. This is I found the hull number, which is down in the, usually the transom bows of a Wagemaker. This one has it stamped into the hull, and then some of them have them over on the left. You'll notice a tag, but this one does not. So I'm not sure why they didn't do that, but it might have been the year they were changing things. The Ply-Lap was introduced in 1954, and this is in 1955. So you have a molded plywood boat, and then they added the laps. Those were then glued to a traditional Wagemaker Wolverine hull, which is smooth. This one was the introduction of another layer of a lap. So it looks like lap strake, like Chris Craft or Lyman is known for, but this one was applied to it to give it that look. And they do have sea-keeping characteristics a lot of people love about the Ply-Lap construction. Lake Erie, especially where the Lyman Boat Company was founded, that short choppy wave patterns on Lake Erie is really positive. And I think in the Lake Michigan area where this was built, it probably was just as good. Everything on the boat is original except maybe the windshield, which the owner thinks might have been added. There's some conflicting information on the Wolverine website, which Brian Fogarty maintains very well, is that the windshields, from what he said, or I saw in one of the brochures, could come as a kit. They weren't installed on the boat, but they could be purchased as a kit from Wagemaker, or in some other literature Brian mentioned, they might have just had them put on at the dealership. So this corner bracket is just really cool. Not what I see in a lot of Wagemakers. Usually you'll see a split windshield with two pieces of safety glass, or a plexiglass possibly. This one is really cool. So I'm assuming it came from the distributor or the dealer that sold it a few owners ago. The horns are very normal for this size of boat, as are the hardware. It's all matching up really well to 1955. The Atwood bow light is a 55, so that works. Some of these pieces could have been made at Wagemaker. They had their own marine hardware division, so it's very likely that some of this could have been made at Wagemaker itself. So the windshield, according to the owner, definitely needs to be cut down. They would like something a little more streamlined, and we're gonna find a style that she likes. Just probably cut it down at least maybe half, but we're gonna work on that. Interior is in very good shape. Again, the interior might be addressed in later restoration steps. We'll figure that out when we get there. I love the Muskegon made True Speed speedometer. Those are really cool. 1955 Atwood steering wheel. We're going to sand that out and do any sort of epoxy correction, meaning cracks, since it is very old. And we'll then repaint it. Maybe to match the boat sides, which are going to be natural, and then a color that we'll be choosing at a later date. I love the floor shift. I really don't like having boats where shifters stick up above the gunnel. It really messes up the shear line for me. I've done this in a couple of my boats, and I really enjoy it. It's a left-hand shift, but I mean, once you're in gear, it's just throttle, and then it sits there. You don't have to have your hand on it all the time. So, but you can see the interior is in beautiful condition, mahogany, lumber. The interior very well taken care of after it had been lightly restored, from what I understand. Hopefully we can leave a lot of this alone, maybe just a slight scuffing, and then have a nice coat of satin varnish put on. A few things in the back I'll probably correct if she asks. Put the acorn nuts back on the back. This did not have cushions. It was something where you would have several throw cushions, and you'd just sit on those and against your back. As you can see, the interior is in very good condition. It's period correct. Stern light, all of this. Back here, I guess, not really comfortable for seating, but you could put some kids back there that were being unruly, I assume. We'll go ahead and just clean that up and see what happens with this restoration. Maybe we'll move into the interior. Transom is part of the restoration. I will strip that down either with sanding, or I might even try some stripping from Total Boat. They have a nice Total Boat stripper I would like to try, and we'll do that and get that corrected. It's not anything is, from what I can tell, bad in the way of deterioration of wood. It's just a lot of use. The end of the transom, especially the strakes of a lap strake boat, are going to get beat up. That's for a lot of things, beaches and other things, trailers. They wear on a boat. So we're going to do that. Here's a shot of the bottom a little bit. I believe we also have an original Wagemaker brand trailer, which is really cool, that we can put a complete package back together, boat and trailer, and then maybe a period motor that will really show well and be an attractive boat going down the road and down the lake. So that is the walk around. The next step for me will be to take the Evinrude motor off and put it on a newly made cart that I always make my own carts. I trust them. They're not going to fall down. That will sit on there until the owner makes a decision about the motor, and maybe it'll be sold and then swapped for something else, but we'll get there. So that's this step. I'm going to now go and remove the motor. So that completes the removal of the outboard motor step. That'll allow me to flip the boat over, not have anything falling. I took the liberty of having the battery cables and throttle and shifter cables. I taped them up, put them under the floorboard so they won't be in the way, getting hung up on the cradle that it'll be sitting on upside down or falling out and then having to fix those. The seats and everything else seem to be secure, including the floorboards. And I will go ahead and now make a cradle for the boat that it can sit on during the duration of its restoration. What I do is I take the profile of the dashboard area and the profile back here, probably the rear seat, and I make a form that it can sit on, and then I pad it with noodles, pool noodles, and then it sits on a 8x4 movable cradle that allows me to work on it at waist level, keep it secure in place, and move the trailer out of the shop because it takes up so much room, and I'll deal with the trailer later on. And then when I get done with the bottom, I'll flip it over with my gantry cranes, and I'll make a new profile, 2 sets, or 1 set, one for the bottom rear and one for the bottom about where the dash is again, and then again set it back down on a nice cushioned surface so that new paint is protected. And then if we do the interior, it'll be ready. If not, I'll gantry crane it back up and we'll put her back on the trailer and it'll be off on its way. We'll see once the owner figures out what the next step is after the hull restoration. So that wraps up today's video. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button. And if you really liked it, hit the like button. That always helps. And I will put this into a new playlist called the 55 Wagemaker Ply-Lap project. And it will be probably every 2 weeks I'll have a new video about this. And some other boats that are coming into the shop will have their own playlist later in the year. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.